Once upon a time, in a land of towering mountains and vast green valleys, lived a giant named Finn. Now, Finn was a giant in every sense of the word. His head brushed the clouds, his footsteps shook the earth like soft thunder, and his voice could echo from one end of the valley to the other. He was strong enough to uproot ancient oak trees with a single pull and gentle enough to cradle a lost lamb in his enormous hands. All the creatures of the valley, from the smallest field mice to the great mountain bears, looked up to Finn with a mixture of awe and affection. He was their protector, their friend, the gentle giant who kept the valley safe and sound. But Finn had a secret, a very big secret for a very big giant. He was afraid, terribly, utterly afraid. And what was it that this mighty giant feared? Was it dragons with fiery breath? Or grumpy trolls who guarded bridges? No, Finn was afraid of snowflakes. Yes, you heard that right. Snowflakes. Those tiny, delicate, six-sided crystals of ice that drifted down from the sky in winter. The very thought of them made his giant heart pound and his enormous hands tremble. Every year, as autumn painted the leaves in shades of gold and crimson, a shadow would fall over Finn's cheerful face. He would watch the days grow shorter and the air grow crisper with a sense of mounting dread. He'd see the birds begin their long journey south and a lump would form in his throat. Winter was coming. And with winter came the snow. His friends in the valley couldn't understand it. But Finn, a wise old owl named Hoot would say, perched on a branch that barely held his weight, "Snow is beautiful. It covers the world in a soft white blanket. It's quiet and peaceful." A playful red fox named Rusty would chime in. "And it's so much fun. We can slide down the hills and make snow foxes." But Finn would just shake his head, his expression grim. "You don't understand," he would rumble, his voice low. They're everywhere, so many of them, falling, always falling. It's too much." When the first snowflake of the season finally appeared, a tiny speck of white against a gray sky, Finn's fear would take over completely. He would retreat into his massive cave high up on the mountain, blocking the entrance with a boulder so huge that no one else could move it, and there he would stay, all winter long. He would huddle in the darkest corner of his cave, wrapped in thick furs, listening to the muffled silence of the snow piling up outside. He missed the winter festivals, the cozy fires in the village, and the cheerful company of his friends. The loneliness was a heavy cloak, but to him, it was better than facing the endless, falling white. One year, the autumn was particularly beautiful, but Finn couldn't enjoy it. His fear felt bigger than ever. He spent his days anxiously scanning the skies, his heart leaping at every wisp of a white cloud. One afternoon, as he was gathering firewood, he met a little girl from the village named Lily. Lily had a spirit as bright as her red coat and a curiosity that knew no bounds. She wasn't afraid of the giant. In fact, she often left him little gifts of wildflowers and shiny pebbles near his cave. Seeing the worried look on his face, she asked, "What's wrong, Finn?" "You look sad." Finn, who had a soft spot for the little girl, found himself confiding in her. "It's the snow, Lily," he confessed, his voice barely a whisper. "I'm afraid of it." Lily tilted her head, her bright eyes full of genuine confusion. "Afraid of snowflakes? But why? They're like tiny little stars you can catch on your tongue." "They're not like stars," Finn grumbled. "They're cold and there are millions of them. They cover everything until you can't see the ground or the trees or anything familiar. It feels like the world is disappearing." Lily thought for a moment, her brow furrowed. Then she had an idea. "Finn," she said bravely, "what if you didn't hide from it this year? What if you faced it? Just for a little bit. With me." Finn was about to refuse, to retreat into his familiar fear, but something in Lily's hopeful expression stopped him. He looked at her small, determined face and then at his own gigantic, trembling hands. How could it be that this tiny person was so brave, while he, a giant, was so full of fear? Maybe she was right. "All right, Lily," he said, the words feeling strange in his mouth. "I'll try." A few weeks later, the day arrived. The air grew still and the sky turned a pearly gray. Then the first snowflake began its slow, silent descent. Finn's first instinct was to run, to seal himself in his cave. But then he remembered his promise to Lily. He took a deep, shuddering breath and stood his ground. Down below, he could see a tiny figure in a red coat waving at him. It was Lily. He took a slow, heavy step out into the open. The snowflake landed on the back of his giant hand. It was so small he could barely feel it. It wasn't heavy or sharp, it was just cold. and then it melted into a tiny, glistening drop of water. He stared at it, mesmerized. Then another snowflake landed, and another. They weren't a terrifying swarm. They were individuals, each one unique, each one landing with a touch as light as a feather. Lily called up to him, her voice carrying on the quiet air. "See, Finn? They're just little bits of water." Gathering all his courage, Finn started to walk down the mountain path towards the village, something he had never done in winter. With each step, more snowflakes fell around him. They dusted his hair and settled on his broad shoulders. He held out his hand, palm up, and watched as dozens of them collected there, a delicate, sparkling pile. He brought his hand closer to his face and, for the first time, truly looked at one. He saw its intricate patterns, its perfect six-sided shape. It wasn't a monster. It was a tiny work of art. As he reached the valley floor, he saw that the world wasn't disappearing. It was being transformed. The familiar trees were now draped in elegant white lace. The rooftops of the village wore soft, white caps. The world wasn't gone. It was just wearing its winter clothes. Lily ran up to him, her face alight with joy. "You did it, Finn! You're doing it!" Finn looked down at her, and a slow, wide smile spread across his face, the first winter smile he had smiled in years. "I did, didn't I?" He boomed, and his voice was not filled with fear, but with wonder. The children from the village, seeing that the giant was not hiding, cautiously came out of their homes. They watched as Finn, the great giant who feared snowflakes, knelt and let Lily show him how to make a snowball. His first snowball was the size of a small cottage, but he quickly learned to make smaller, more manageable ones. That winter was the best winter Finn had ever known. He didn't hide. He played. He helped clear snow from the village paths with a single sweep of his hand. He gave the children rides on his shoulders so they could see the winter wonderland from a giant's perspective. He learned to love the quiet hush of a snowy morning and the joyful shouts of his friends as they slid down the hills. The fear that had seemed as big as a mountain had shrunk down to the size of a single beautiful snowflake. Finn had learned that facing your fears doesn't always make them disappear completely, but it does show you that you are much, much bigger than they are. And from that day on, the giant who once feared snowflakes eagerly awaited the winter, ready to welcome every single tiny, frozen star. Thank you for watching our story today. If you enjoyed it, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more tales that warm the heart. We'll see you next time.